Welcome to the Empower Me Now Summit. I am your host, Sabine Matharo. I'm also the co-founder of the Empower Me Hub. And today I have a special guest, and we're going to start with our first talk. Just want to introduce the summit very quickly and share a couple of slides before we dive into our topic and explain, well, who is it for and how can you benefit from these sessions and what have we got in store? Well, so firstly, here it is, the Empower Me Now Summit. It is the ultimate career development event to empower corporate professionals to achieve career growth, leadership skills, and life balance. So you will have a whole range of different talks available to you. If you are registered, then you will get an email. If you're not quite registered yet, please just put a comment in the comment section, and we will send you obviously the link and make sure you are fully registered. So why did we create this and who are we? We are two founders here. It's myself and Sharon Bose. So we have been in corporate world for many years, and we've been coaches and consultants. And what we witnessed really is that many driven professionals struggle to achieve the balance, fulfillment, and the impact that they deserve. And our mission really is to support these change makers, and you must be one of them if you're listening in, and we want to empower you to not only transform your own life, but also your professional life. So we're talking about a whole human, a holistic approach here as well. So if you want to have more joy, more fulfillment in your own life and further your career, then obviously this is the place for you. What we have for you this week is obviously we've got a range of different speakers. So we talk about physical, mental, emotional well-being, as well as leadership, career growth, and obviously many more topics. We've got expert speakers, we've got real practical talks. So they're going to bring in some great golden nuggets for you as well, with a special focus area. So the first speaker we have today is Andrew Tallents, and I am absolutely excited to have him. He is really knowledgeable and knows everything about self-coaching. He's even written a book on self-coaching, and he will talk about living fully, leading powerfully, and how to get out of your own way and achieve personal and professional fulfillment, which is so topical. Just a bit about Andrew. He is a seasoned self-coaching expert with over 25 years of experience in leadership consulting. His journey started from a council estate in Manchester to then founding a Tallents Partnership in 2017, which is a testament really to his commitment to empowering leaders to achieve their full potential. So without further ado, I'm just going to get Andrew into the room right now, because he is waiting so I can add him and to say hello. Andrew, welcome.
Hi, Sabine. Good to be here. Looking forward to kicking off the whole summit.
Brilliant. Likewise. I think I'm just going to hand over. I'm going to sort of move in the background. I will be listening in. And if anyone is listening live, has a comment or a question, please just pop it in the chat. I will make sure that it gets answered at the end as well. And if you're watching on the replay, of course, do leave your comments and your questions, and we will go back to you, and we'll also be trying to give our best to actually come back to you on any of the questions you might have. So, Andrew, are you ready? I'm going to add
ready.
The slides here as well. And here we go. Welcome.
Thanks, Sabina. Well, welcome everybody to this Empower Me Summit. And I'm really looking forward to spending the next 35 minutes or so with you today. A very interesting title in terms of living fully and leading powerfully. What I've learned over the last 55 years is that it's very important that we learn how to get out of our own way. And if we do that, we have at least half a chance to achieve our personal and professional dreams, or fulfillment, as you may want to call it. So what I'm going to be doing over the next 30 to 35 minutes is just really going through a framework that you might be able to relate to in how you might do this, leave you with 2 or 3 tips that you can take away today to start maybe on the first few steps of this journey. And then we've got some time for Q&A later on. But because I don't know who you are in the audience and the ones that be watching this in the recording, it'd be good just to understand what you would describe yourself in terms of a manager. So if somebody said to you, what kind of manager are you? What words come to mind in terms of adjectives? Just think about that for a moment. And for those brave enough, if they want to put them in the comments, then you can do that as well. But just think for a moment the adjectives that would describe you as a manager. And then think about some of the adjectives that maybe others have said about you or you would say about yourself in terms of who you are as a leader. There are subtle differences, but there certainly are different adjectives. Just take a moment to think about that. What this webinar is all about today is really raising awareness in all of us about the responsibility we have to lead ourselves before we start to lead others. And too often, our organizations, our family systems, our educational systems teach us how to manage ourselves and other people. And I wanted to think about how we shift from management into leadership. So today, what we're going to be covering is very briefly how I got out of my own way, so you can realize and understand it can be done. Then move into providing a framework to you about how you can get out of your own way in terms of achieving your dreams, your full potential in life. And then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. And if we can't get all the questions answered today, we can take those offline and I'll come back and answer all the questions. So just starting with my story. This is me as a 7-year-old. I'm the one on the left, that's my brother with me. And when I was 7, I believe I had the world ahead of me. I was growing up on a council estate in Manchester. My father was sacrificing himself in terms of the work he was doing, and he was encouraging me to go to university. And when I became 15 years old, I was doing my GCSEs here in the UK. And he said to me, Andrew, you need to work hard in life for the things that you want to achieve. And so I set out to do that. My father, when I was 15, had got a post out in Saudi Arabia, and he was 6 weeks out in Saudi Arabia earning lots of money, and 2 weeks back at home with the family. And at that point, I had my brother, who you can see here, but also my mother was at home, and she was really struggling with him being away. I remember receiving a letter from him on that Par Avion blue notepaper, which said to me in a letter one day, which my mum didn't know about, Andrew, your brother's really struggling with me being away. He's playing truant from school. I didn't know that at the time. And your mother is really struggling, and she was suffering from depression at the time, which again, I was only aware of a little bit later. And in essence, the letter said, I need you to actually look after your brother and your mother and the house while I'm away for 6 weeks at a time. And even now, connecting to that, feeling very emotional. I didn't realize at the time how that was going to affect me in later years. But essentially what it did was made me grow up very quickly as I was doing my GCSEs and having to really work out a survival strategy about how I was going to live my life in that kind of environment. And so what I did is I started to become very resourceful. I became very self-leadership focused in terms of having to get things done, all the things I had to do. And I became almost detached and away from my own emotions because I had to really look after other people. And this manifested in very different ways. But what it did was lead me to be very successful over a period of about 20 years in terms of promotion after promotion after promotion, moving into recruitment, getting married, having a child. And yet I wasn't really feeling happy and I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And at that time, again, I didn't really realize how that was affecting my life, but it was certainly affecting my relationships. I went through a divorce. I was working away a lot. I became a workaholic. I worked for an international search firm and traveled the world. And it was only in 2017 when I had a therapy session, which, by the way, wasn't something I sought. It was part of an educational course that I was doing. I'm glad I did it, where the therapist said to me, Andrew, you always talk about I and never we. And that really struck a chord with me because it had been about me surviving and self-preservation. And at that point, I decided that I had a choice in life. And with a therapist and with a coach, I decided to change my life, left corporate life, and in 2017, I established the Tallents Partnership. I was determined to be successful, but on my own terms. And what I'm going to go through today is actually tell you how I did that in terms of the framework, so you can learn from that, because there are 12 easy steps, and anybody can actually change their life from what it is today to something different. What did it lead to? Well, essentially, in 2021, it led to the publication of a book, which Sabina kindly mentioned, Self-Coaching for Leaders, which was published with a publisher who was supporting me at the time in terms of writing the book. And I'm pleased to say it got to number 2 in the Amazon bestsellers in December 2021. This was a boy from a council estate who was taught to work hard, not particularly good at English, and yet I managed to write a book which hopefully was making a difference. So how did I do that? Well, it was all about coaching, really, and we'll talk about coaching and what it means. But if you were to look this up about what the International Coaching Federation says about coaching, then it is this. It is a partnership with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. I think there are about 120,000 qualified accredited coaches in the world, and there are still not enough, because every single person out there, every single manager, leader deserves to have a coach to help them work through the problems about how they get out in their own way. So I truly believe in the essence of coaching. But if that's the actual definition of coaching, what is self-coaching about? Well, I only really learned this during COVID when I was writing the book, because people had to find ways to be resourceful in between coaching sessions. And what we found was there was ability of individuals, whether they're managers or leaders, to actually coach themselves on a daily basis just by building daily habits through the same concepts of a coach, but actually doing it through self-reflection, self-leadership, and understanding where it was we can help ourselves. So this is the definition. It's the process of leading one's own personal development through self-leadership, which we'll come to, and the support of others to help them maximize their personal and professional potential. The support of others is really, really important, because many of us try and lead ourselves, think we can do it all ourselves. We don't need any help. And usually that, again, comes from our childhoods in terms of us being resourceful. And yet we have to ask for help. We can't do this on our own. So if that's the definition of self-coaching, let's go into the self-coaching model, which I devised through the book, and what I call the self-coaching cycle. It's a cycle because there are 12 steps in 3 phases, and we go through them all the time in our lives. And yet each one of them independently is a very unique and important element of self-coaching. So I'm briefly going to go through each of the 12 elements, and I'm going to pick 3 out for you today, which I want you to reflect upon and actually maybe take away with you to do something about today. So in terms of self-coaching cycle, there are 3 particular phases. The first is reconnecting with who we are. The second is refocusing on what is important. And the third is regenerating the more authentic self of who we are. And they're the 3 phases that we go through in the self-coaching cycle. So let's go through reconnect and what that means. There are 4 steps in the reconnect stage. The first is self-leadership. And this is about taking responsibility for who we are as managers, as leaders, as family members, and actually making decisions about what we are responsible for and doing something about it, rather than blaming others, which we do a lot in the West. It's somebody else's fault. Well, we have a responsibility to lead ourselves. That's always step 1, which is a very important step. And I only started doing that 8 years ago. Secondly, who am I? This was a question that was asked of me when I attended the AOEC to do my coaching qualifications. It's the first question they ask you on the course. Who are you, Andrew, really? Who are you as an individual, a human being, a leader, and then a coach? So who am I? And we can do lots of psychometric tests around these and various other assessment tests online. You can start to understand who you really are. Thirdly, why am I here? We're going to look at this later, but it's about purpose. What am I on this planet to do? Why do I actually do the things I do each day? How do I bounce out of bed each morning because I'm doing the things that I'm here to do? So that's the third stage. And then the fourth step is about emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence can be defined as how can we actually manage our own responses to the way that we're feeling and others are feeling around us in a way which actually builds strong relationships, both with who we view ourselves as and also those that we are in relationship with. And again, those that tend to have had very difficult pasts sometimes find it very difficult to connect to their feelings. So emotional intelligence is a fourth step in terms of reconnecting. And once we've been through all of those steps, we have a better idea about who we are, why we're here, and actually how we feel about all of those things on a daily basis. The second phase is refocusing. The most important element of this part is step 5, which actually what is essential for us to do in life. We're going to look at this later on, but actually a book by Greg McKeown called Essentialism really changed my life in terms of me understanding what's essential for me to do each day to be able to be successful in life, that only I can do, that only I can take responsibility for, that nobody else can do for me. And there are a number of those things that we can go through. The sixth element is trust. And too many people actually mistake the fact that actually we have to get people to trust us. We can't force people to trust us. We have to build trust with other people. We have to show vulnerability to show people that we do have weaknesses and that we do need their help. So that step 6 of building trust with others is something we have to initiate proactively. Step 7, accountability. This is something that's missing in most management teams, most boards, most leadership teams, most families. Who is responsible for doing what? What are the consequences of us not doing those things? And how do we recontract with each other? How do we renegotiate with each other to make sure the things that need to get done are done? And we have self-discipline to do that. And then step 8, most importantly for all of us today in this very busy world around technology, creating space, whether you call this mindfulness, walking, meditation, going to the gym, something where we look after our own well-being so we can reflect on what it is that we're here to do. So those 4 steps of the refocus stage really enable us to focus on what's important and linking to reconnecting with ourselves. And then the final stage, regenerate, comes after those 2 stages, because we can only do this third stage, regenerating, once we actually reconnect and refocus, because it's about the everyday habits we're building to making sure that we're coaching ourselves on that daily basis. The first step here is resilience. And this isn't about having a stiff upper lip or getting up again when people put us down. It's actually simply drawing on all the natural resources we already have as human beings that we've built up during the years we've been on this planet, that we can draw upon as long as we're present and know that we can actually access them. So resilience is all about that. The 10th step is mental fitness, which links into Shirzad Shamin's work around positive intelligence. We're going to talk briefly about that later. But how do we actually build this muscle of feeling positive about ourselves, our relationships, what we're here to do in life, as opposed to being drawn into the victim mentality of negativity? So that's step 10. And step 11, once we've been through all those steps, how do we then apply ourselves to leading teams effectively and creating followership, because we are leading ourselves effectively and people want to follow us? And then the final step, which goes back to my initial point about coaching and the importance of coaching, is this coaching culture, driving and leading a coaching culture in our families, in our communities, in our churches, in our organizations that we're in service of. And that's the final element. So those 4 steps enable us to regenerate who we are as leaders, peeling back the layer of the onion to reveal the new version of ourselves, which is much more authentic than before. I'm happy to take any questions later on those steps, but we're just going to go through briefly these 3 stages and give you some tips about how you can actually start working towards building some confidence around self-coaching. So in the self-coaching cycle, we have these 3 stages of reconnecting, refocusing, and regenerating. One of the most important elements of self-coaching around the reconnecting with who we are is asking this question about, why am I here? What am I in service of? So I'm just going to give us now a few elements of what a good question would be for you to answer to actually try and get closer to this. And again, I'm very happy to follow up after today about how you can expand upon this. But this is the question. And I want you to ask it of yourselves now, if you're watching this, listening to this. If I had no restrictions in my life whatsoever, how would I spend the rest of my life on this planet? We have no financial limitations. We have no health limitations. We have no restrictions around who we're in relationship with. We have no restrictions at all in life. How would I spend the rest of my life on this planet? I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to actually connect to that question and maybe write down a few thoughts. As you're doing that, what I tend to notice with my clients and people that work with me in the self-coaching frameworks is we always put things in the way. We have a yes, but, yes, but, yes, but let's dream. Let's think about if we really could live as we wanted to live on this planet, what would we do? What would we spend time doing? What I tend to find is that when we really explore this at some depth, we're probably closer to living that life than we actually think we are. So feel free to expand on this after the webinar. Just stop writing now so we can move on to the next point. So once you've done this exercise, and please continue with this after this session, we can actually do a few things with it. And I really would encourage you to think about these steps. Once you've actually written down, and you can either even draw this sometimes or write down what it is you would do with your life, just articulate your thoughts that you've written down into compelling vision for the future. Some people do this through storyboards, vision boards, drawing, telling a story, writing it down, dictating. It doesn't matter, but just articulate your thoughts. And then the brave bit, go and tell 10 people in your life about your vision, about what you want to do with your life. Not when you have time or when you have more money or when you have your health. Now, what would you do if you had no restrictions? And tell 10 people. People usually start off by maybe having a couple of safe people they could speak to, like family and friends, and that's fine. But then be really brave and go and tell people in your organization or people that maybe have influence on your life, some role models. And go with the intention of just really telling them, not expecting them to endorse you or say it's great. Just tell them and see what that feels like. And then using all the insight gained from the exercise and from any feedback that you do get, design yourself an ideal role description independent of what you're doing right now in your life. Just write it out. And a charter about these are the kinds of organizations I would work for. This is how I'd want to spend my time. This is who I'd want to work for. This is who I'd want to work with. And just create maybe a 1-page, 2-page A4 ideal role and charter so you can start sharing it with people, particularly as you're looking at job opportunities as they come up in the future. Tell your current network what your vision is and ask for help. If you were me, what would you do next? If I want to live this vision, what would you do next? It's amazing how many people want to help and support you. I truly believe that your ideal role in life, whatever that is, if you really deeply think about it, exists out there in the world, and you just need to go and either find it or create it, which is what many people do when they leave their roles and go and set up their own business. So some food for thought there in terms of this question about why am I here? And I'd encourage you to take some more time out after today to really explore this question and start exploring it with your network. So as we move into the second stage of the self-coaching cycle, focusing on what is essential is really, really important. Let's assume you've decided what life it is that you want to live. You've got some clarity around that. You're starting to share it with some people. Then it's about really refocusing on what's going to get you there. And I do find that this question is really compelling. And again, what I'd like you to do is just really reflect on the question. Think about what are the things that come up for you as you reflect on this question, and maybe start writing down some of the thoughts that come up for you. So for that dream life that I've designed for myself, through asking the question, why am I here? For me to be successful in living my dream life, what is essential for me to do that I and only I can do? I can't delegate it. I can't get anyone else to help me with it. I've got to do it. So just reflect on that. For me to be successful in living my dream life, what is essential for me to do that I and only I can do? I'm just going to give you a few moments to reflect on that. There are usually 6 to 8 things for any individual that are the things that only they can do in life to be successful, that are essential for them to do. There are many other things that we choose to do, that we've got in habit of doing, that we like doing, that others like us to do. But actually, are they really essential for us to live that dream life? I can now guarantee that many of you that are writing these down as I speak wouldn't have written down looking after my own well-being. It tends to come very low in the list of managers and leaders when they're actually thinking about this question. But there is nobody else that can look after your well-being. Even if you have a personal fitness trainer or somebody that's really looking after your nutrition, it's still got to be you that actually leads that life and gets into the new habits. So again, after today, think about those 6 to 8 tasks or relationships that you need to be doing or need to be in that are essential for you to do, that only you can do. And again, just stop writing so we can move on to what you might do with this. So this whole concept of essentialism is really worth exploring and reading about. And as I said, Greg McKeown wrote a great book about this, and he's written a couple of other books following it. But there's lots of research to suggest the more we can let go and the more we can build discipline about doing what is essential means that we're going to get closer to living our dream life. So what is essential that only I can do to ensure I'm successful is the key question, and then focus on those things. If you write the 6 to 8 things that are the things that only you can do, start focus on them. I usually find that many leaders and managers are only spending 20 to 30% of their time on the things that are essential for them to do. So really work that out, change your week, change your diary, push back to your leaders, push back to your team, push back to your managers, push back to your family members, remove the non-essential from your life. It's draining. It's not purposeful. It doesn't help. And more importantly, as we said about self-coaching and the importance of asking for support, it's really important that you do ask for the support in moving towards essentialism and delegate more effectively to others so they can grow and develop in what it is they want to do. And of course, we get back time when we're leading this essentialist life. So use the extra time that's gained wisely to focus even more on what is essential. I have a ready list now, 1 page of A4, of the 8 things that I have to do in life to be successful that only I can do in terms of enabling other people to live their dreams. And everything else that doesn't appear on that list, I find other ways to delegate or get support and help from my people in my partnership group. So that's essentialism. And the final element I want to focus on before we get into the Q&A is mental fitness. And this comes in the 3rd stage of the self-coaching cycle, this regenerate phase. It's almost this building the muscle of being able to lead ourselves and coach ourselves effectively. And I call this stage mental fitness. There's a great book by Shirzad Chamine called Positive Intelligence that actually talks about this. I'm going to go into a bit of detail around this in a minute. But there is a question that you can ask yourself straight away about how you're doing with this at the moment. And again, I want you to take some time just to reflect on this, just to really connect with mental fitness. What do I notice about the quality of my relationships when I am feeling negative? And feeling negative means angry, resentful, anxious, feeling inertia, feeling worried, feeling fear, feeling judgmental. All of these negative feelings we have, what do you notice about the quality of your relationships in that moment when you're feeling negative? You can just make a note to yourself about what feelings come up about that when you're in relationships. A tip here in terms of how to manage this and how can we move away from negative thoughts, which are usually unhelpful, into more positive thoughts where we can be more discerning rather than judgmental. And what's really interesting about Shirzad Shamin's work is he came up with this concept of the saboteurs, our self-sabotage ability to be able to get in the way of our own success. And what he talked about was the judge. We all have the judge in our thinking. It affects the way we think. Is very similar to Steve Peters' chimp paradox. But essentially what he said is whenever we're feeling negative as a human being, we're judging things in one of three ways. We're either judging ourselves, i.e. imposter syndrome, self-doubt, whatever it might be. We're judging other people. They're not good enough. They're stupid. Why can't they just do what I ask them to do? Or we're judging our situation. It's not fair that I can't get the money for this project. It's not fair that I've been asked to do this. It's not fair that there's inequity in terms of my relationships. And that's when we judge our environment. So what he says is whenever those three thoughts are in play and we're feeling negative, it really impacts our ability to move towards our dreams. And what he says is the best way to think about this is that one of 9 saboteurs is usually at play at any one time when we're feeling negative. So the first trigger is, if I'm feeling negative, I'm in judgment mode. Therefore, I know that there's a saboteur in play. Which one is it? And these tend to be linked to our childhood. I just want to really briefly mention the 9 here so you can connect with them and have a reflection on which one might be present for you. So the first one is controller. Whenever we're feeling negative and I'm actually starting to lose control of something, my immediate response is to actually try and gain more control. And of course, we all know we're not in control of anything. Actually, you may think we are. We may be perceived that we are, but we're not in control of anything. So control is a really interesting one that shows up a lot in leaders and managers. And when it's a negative feeling, it means we're actually feeling anxious about losing control. And we try harder to get it back and we can't. The second is hyperachiever. And this is all about when we're feeling negative, trying to succeed, trying to make sure things happen the way we want, when actually it might be better just to step back and let things happen and see what happens, because it might actually not be so bad after all. This turns up a lot in leaders as well. The third one is restless, and this tends to affect people a lot when they've lost a loved one earlier in their lives, maybe in their childhood. And this message around life's too short, I just need to keep busy, I'm very good at spinning plates, juggling balls. Again, very good for organizations because we actually manage to, cope with all this workload, but actually we get exhausted. We can't sustain it. So restless saboteur tends to show up when we're feeling negative, just to take more on all the time. Then we have the stickler. This is about precision, high quality work, perfectionism. And again, when we're feeling negative, this isn't always helpful because actually, you know what, it's probably good enough in terms of what we're doing right now. It doesn't need to be as perfect as maybe we think it does. Then we have the pleaser, and we all know the pleaser, and they're probably in this webinar now, where we want to say no to people, but when we're feeling negative, we actually don't want to upset them, and therefore we say yes. And then we build resentment up, and we don't really, and frustration because we wish we would not say yes because we can't take on the work. So pleaser shows up a lot for us when we're feeling negative. The hypervigilant is very present for us as a saboteur when we have, again, difficult childhoods, when we've had to really be aware of our surroundings, our environment, because we feel in danger. And the hypervigilant, when it's present within our thinking and our psyche, means that it always teaches us to over-prepare, fear the worst. And again, we don't always need to prepare as much as we actually think we do. So the hypervigilant saboteur is a really interesting one to have a look at. Then we have the avoider, so those out there that actually don't like conflict. Usually avoider saboteur kicks in when we're feeling negative because we don't want to upset people in terms of affecting relationships. And therefore we avoid difficult discussions, we avoid performance management reviews, we avoid asking for feedback sometimes for fear of what's going to be said. And so the avoider is present within many of us. And we all have 2 or 3 of these really strong within us as human beings. And the victim saboteur, this usually is when we've had a very tough life up until this point, and we just can't see any way out in the sense of leading a life that we want to live. And therefore it's everybody else's fault. We're not going to take any responsibility. And that negativity just then spiral about blaming somebody else. And then finally, the hyper-rational, which is about a response to some emotion around us, some feeling around us. And when we're feeling negative, we find that difficult to cope with in terms of the emotion. And therefore we go into rational mode about why. We ask why. This used to happen to me quite a bit when I had people in my team maybe being very emotional or upset around me because of workload. And I used to go up to them and ask them, why are you crying? And they didn't want me to do that. They wanted me to put my arm around them and say, what's the matter? What can I do to help? So all these 9 saboteurs are present within us, and they tend to appear in different forms for us when we're feeling negative. My top 3 are hyperachiever, hyper-rational, and controller. And I've had to manage those very effectively over the last 7 or 8 years since I became aware of them to actually make sure I move into positive, because when I move into positive thoughts rather than negative thoughts, it means that actually I can almost mitigate the negative feelings and make these superpowers. And we can go into more detail around that in the future. So after today's webinar, reflect on which of those saboteurs might be useful for you. What's really good is you can actually go on to Shirzad Shameen's site, which is positiveintelligence.com, look up the saboteur model, and you can actually do a free survey. You can click in, answer some questions. You get a free email back telling you what your top saboteurs are. And I really would encourage you to explore that, to understand what your own saboteurs are and how they get in your own way. And practice the shifting from negative thoughts to being present in the moment. Sometimes this is a shift of energy, shift in environment, it's just shift in what you're doing, and try and get more into presence and positive thinking. I'm conscious that we're coming up to the end of time, and I do want to take any questions you might have. So just in summary, in terms of what we talked about today, in terms of our responsibility as human beings, if we want to live our dreams, both personally and professionally, and live our lives powerfully and fully, then what I've learned is we have to go through this self-coaching cycle of the 12 steps across the 3 phases of reconnect, refocus, and regenerate. And what I've also found is that we can be at any one of these steps at any point in time. And then we move round and we start to again get to the end and then move around the cycle again. So I'd encourage you to think about this cycle and how it applies to you in terms of your everyday life from now on. I want to finish with something that really fundamentally changed my life in terms of some work by Byron Katie. And if you're not believing me today and you're still doubting your ability to do this, I would just look at her work, which she calls the work. And whatever belief you have that's limiting you at this moment and getting in the way of you living your life the way you want to, ask yourself a question, whatever that belief is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true? Can you absolutely be sure it's true? And how do you react when you believe that thought? How does it get in your way of who you want to be? And who would you be without that thought? Because that's the possibility. And you can lead yourself there in terms of your own self-leadership, your own self-coaching over time with the support of people like me and other contributors to the Empower Me Summit. So I'd like to really leave you with that thought. And I really thank you for your attention today. And we can go into any Q&A. You're on mute, Sabine.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Really, really appreciate you coming on today and sharing such a powerful talk. Yes, I would invite anyone who's listening in right now. We've got quite a few people watching, so welcome here today. If you would like to ask Andrew any questions, we do have a couple of minutes available. Very, very welcome to ask away in the chat. I have to say, what I took away is that I love the fact that you said that we have this facade and we might want to please others, and we only do like 20 or 30% of the time we do really what's essential for us, and then everything else is kind of pleasing others or doing things that we think we should be doing for others, or it's expected. And I think it's hard. Like, what if we're somewhere stuck and we don't enjoy where we are right now, like in a career, in a job, in a situation? How can you be really like courageous and say, well, I'm going to change now? It's tough, right?
It is tough. And I think the key thing for me, which we spoke about there, was it's having that courage, not necessarily to do anything to begin with, but just to share. So share how you're feeling about your current situation, share with others what it is you really want to do in life. But it's that intention that's really important, because if we share what we want to do with others in life, expecting a response to reinforce that or be positive about it or make us feel better, we're doing it for the wrong reason. We're actually just sharing it because we want to get off our chests and recognize that there's possibility of doing that. And once we start doing that, you'll be amazed at how many people, close friends, family, associates, partners, will come and actually want to help you, because that's what human beings want to do. But if we don't share it in the first place, then we will stay in that cycle and circle, and it is very difficult. So the first thing for me is understand what you want to do and then share it with people.
Yeah. And it does take a lot of courage to step into this, because quite often we might feel guilty, or we say, what are they going to think of me, or I'm going to destroy this relationship, or burn the bridges and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's a good starting point, and you illustrated that really well. What we'll do as well is get the list, the book list. I've made some notes in the background, and obviously everything's going to go into the Empower Me hub, and with all the notes. But it would be great just to get those books as well. I might want to read a couple, because I realize 9 Saboteurs, I definitely got about 6 or 7 of those.
Absolutely. We all have.
Okay, if we don't have any further questions, I would love to say thank you to Andrew, and just share a couple of closing notes from my side. So thank you so much. I will just pop you to the back, and I will come back to my slides. Right, let me just grab this. So thank you so much. We've got the Q&A, and if there's any more questions coming up for you, if you're watching on replay, please let us know. Well, the question is, are you ready to get empowered now, right? About empowering yourself now. There is much more that we can do, and we can potentially help you to really step into this. And you can also get support from Andrew directly within our brand new Empower Me hub. So this is for you if you are in a situation, if you are wanting to work on yourself or your well-being or self-leadership, anything around yourself, work life or career. We've actually created a whole range of resources, and I've not seen something like this before, where you have 9 different categories of different topics and workshops that you can actually dip into. So it's really, really beautiful. We've covering everything from career development over to mental well-being, physical, emotional well-being, as well as team leadership, self-leadership. Obviously, Andrew will be there to support you, and many other topics. And we're always inviting members to actually tell us what they would like to see, because we can co-create this space, have conversations. There is a community attached to this as well. We have live workshops a couple of times a month. We've got Q&As, we've got accountability sessions, planning reflection sessions as well, that will really help you implement and help you work on your priorities, especially what Andrew was just telling you about, was about the fact that we need to understand which areas of our lives we want to work on. Where do we want to say no? Where do we want to say yes to? So the Empower Me Hub will really help you clarify where you want to move forwards to, and how we'll create a roadmap with you. And then on a monthly basis, we will be helping you to review this and hold you accountable. And this is a really, really special time, because we're literally just launching this. It's brand new. We've got a range of different experts coming into this space. the top-notch experts, hand selected, and we've got a very special trial period for you, so you can come in, have a look at the hub itself, into the membership, and then thereafter there is a monthly, very low time monthly fee that is 50% off for life right now. So in essence, you will get in, when you get in early now, you will get that deal and you will keep that deal for life, although we're going to actually build so many more resources into the Empower Me Hub, and there's going to be essentially always 2 to 3 sessions on a monthly basis for further growth, and you will never actually incur a price increase. So if you scan this QR code, or you just follow the bit.ly link here, then you will join the hub, and we will let you in. We will greet you with open arms. And yeah, we have a community in there. You can ask questions. You can reach out to Andrew. There's many more resources available within the hub. So without further ado, I am going to close this session. We have a couple of more speakers over the week, so look out on the timetable. If you are registered, obviously make sure you have a look at the emails that are being sent out, and otherwise just leave us a note below this video and we will be able to send you the schedule for the other summit talks for the rest of the week. We've just gonna there's thank you Andrew and Sabine for this webinar. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.